inside the barrier, and so once you enter the Culling game, you lose contact with the outside world. As a result, Yuta had no idea when his comrades would join the game, and so if he had stayed in Tokyo, there is a chance that he would have killed them by accident. Traveling to Sendai solved that problem, but it just so happens that Sendai is the most dangerous colony in the entire game. Inside this barrier, you had multiple special grade threats, and before we continue, it's probably best that we explain each one. Firstly, Dhruv Lakdawala is by far the oldest player in the Culling game, and based on what we know, he's around 2,000 years old. Around 1800 years ago, Dhruv took part in the very first civil war in Japan, and conquered Japan by himself. I actually spoke about this in more depth in my video about every era of Jujutsu Kaisen, so if you want to know the full story of the Civil War of Wa, then the link is in the description. For everyone else, you might be wondering how he conquered an entire country, and the answer is that his technique gives him an open domain. The way it works is that Dhruv has these two giant Shikigami that kind of orbit around each other, and the space in between the Shikigami, that counts as a domain. To put it another way, if you were to accidentally walk into the space in between the Shikigami, then his sure hit effect would get you. In that situation, Dhruv's technique would slash you, kind of similar to Sukuna, and yeah, these slashes can be fatal. In fact, out of all the Culling game players in the Sendai colony, Dhruv had the most points by far with 91. After him, the next player with the highest points was Ryu Ishigori with 77. One of the interesting things about Ryu is that he's from the exact same era as Kashimo, which was around 400 years ago. The name of that era was the Edo period, and although Ryu had a good life and it sounds like he had a wife and he had lots of good fights, he felt like something was missing. He felt like there was one amazing fight that he just never got to have. And so the reason he signed up for the Culling game was to find someone who he could just go all out with, and that fight would be his dessert. Also, something else about Ryu that I have to mention is that out of every player in the Culling game, he has the highest curse energy output. As a quick reminder, curse energy output is the amount of curse energy that you can release in a single attack. And I guess what they're saying is that out of all the players, including Sukuna, Yuta, Kenjaku, and whoever else, Ryu is the best when it comes to this. Following Ryu, we have Takako Uro, who comes from the golden age of sorcery 1,000 years ago. Back then, the biggest political force in Japan was the Fujiwara clan, and in the world of JJK, the Fujiwara clan had an elite squad of sorcerers known as the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad. In her first life, Uro was the captain of that squad, which I think says a lot about her because, the Golden Age was the strongest age of sorcerers, so to be hired by the strongest clan, and then to be given the position of captain in one of their strongest teams, it means that you are probably a special grade threat, or pretty close to it. Her curse technique allows her to use her hands to freely distort and manipulate the space around her, and generally speaking, she uses this to redirect attacks, to defend herself, and to throw people around. Lastly, the final person we need to talk about is Kuro Urushi, who is an intelligent cursed spirit made from humanity's sphere of cockroaches. As you'd expect, Kuro Urushi has multiple cockroach-based abilities, including the power to control real cockroaches, and also the ability to self-reproduce. The name of this self-reproduction is parthenogenesis, and according to Google, female cockroaches can do this to basically produce offspring without needing to mate with anyone. For Kuro Urushi, what this means is that this cursed spirit can produce a child. I would say the closest thing we've heard to this is Chozo's mother, who had a child with the cursed spirit, but besides that, cursed spirits don't usually reproduce. As a side note, Kenjaku is actually the one who had control of this curse, but when the Culling game began, he set it free and allowed it to take part in the Culling game. Then, after 12 days of fighting, these four were locked in a standoff since nobody here wanted to make the first move against the others. Considering that they're all incredibly powerful, it makes sense that there would be a standoff since nobody here wanted to, provoke the other one to launch an attack. During this time, Kuro Urushi went into hibernation, so she just stopped fighting completely, while Uro and Ryu were on the sidelines watching Dhruv Shikigami. Eventually though, on the 12th of November at 11:28 AM, the standoff was broken by Yuta, who just interrupted and killed Dhruv by slicing through him. You might be wondering though, why did Yuta target him and not the others? And I would say there's two answers to this. The first is that Dhruv's technique targets anyone who walks into his domain, so the targets can be sorcerers and civilians. From a civilian point of view, players like Dhruv are the most dangerous because they don't care where they get the points from. The second reason is that Dhruv had been using this stadium as his base, and Yuta thought that if Dhruv was out the way, then the stadium could be used by these civilians. As a quick reminder, back in episode 7, we saw that everyone in Sendai was given the chance to leave, but for whatever reason, not everyone said yes. I'm guessing that some people just thought it was a dream and they didn't know what to say, and probably when it comes to the parents, I would imagine that they wouldn't want to say yes and go outside the barrier because they don't know what their kids are going to say. Imagine leaving the barrier to find out that your 5-year-old child is still in there with the cursed spirits and with the sorcerers. It wouldn't be the best outcome, so you can see why parents might stay behind. As a result, Yuta's plan is to do what's best for the people and at some point get them outside the barrier. And so with all that said, it's time to finally just watch the episode, and yeah, I'll just give you my thoughts as we go along. Okay, so it's a pretty bloody start to the episode, straight from the first second, and Yuta's basically discussing the new rules they need to add, because, it's important to remember, in the Culling game right now, no one can leave. If you're in the Culling game barrier, you can't escape. And so, because of that, the supplies inside the colony are limited, as he says, which means that, within a few days maybe, the food might run out, the water might run out, because it's already been nearly 2 weeks since the game began. As a result of that, I think Yuta is looking to add a rule that will allow people to leave the barriers, but as he says, he can't do that yet, because if he was to allow people to leave, then players like Druve, players like Kuro Urushi, people who attack indiscriminately, they would also be allowed to leave the barriers, and they would just cause havoc all across Japan. On top of that, he also has to think about the other colonies as well, because, he's in Sendai, but for all he knows, every colony has players like Druve. Like I said before, adding a rule that would allow them to leave, it could cause chaos across the entire country, so he just can't do it right now. The main priority for him, I think, is to add a rule that will allow contact and communication between the different colonies. If he's allowed to communicate with the other colonies, then, he can call Yuji, he can call Hikari and just see what's going on. And if the situation allows for it, then he can add a rule allowing people to escape. He also mentions that there are 2 additional rules that he wants to add, and one of those is the transferring of points. The transferring of points is a rule that will basically save Tsumiki's life, because the Culling game kills players if their score stays the same for 19 days. And so allowing the transfer of points will basically save the lives of anyone who doesn't want to kill. It sounds complicated, but in other words, transferring points will allow Tsumiki and a bunch of other people to live. That's the main thing. And this episode is taking place before Yuji's fight with Higuruma. Because if you remember, at the end of that fight, Higuruma adds the rule that allows the transfer of points. And that fight actually takes place on the same day as this, but in this specific moment, it hasn't happened yet. And so for that reason, Yuta himself is thinking, he wants to add 4 new rules, 400 points that he needs, which means he's going to have to kill a lot of people following this moment. Okay, so following Druve's death, we see his Shikigami disappearing, and then we see Yuta with a group of civilians. I guess he's like Jesus to them. He must have found them one by one in the city, and he's now gradually bringing them towards the stadium. I say gradually, I mean they're now running towards the stadium because of all the cockroaches. Yuta notes that these cockroaches are real. They're not just like Shikigami or something. They are real life cockroaches, and there is an entire swarm of them just heading towards the civilians. That is impressive. Okay, so the entire swarm of cockroaches was just destroyed by Yuta's curse energy output. And, I should point out, discharging curse energy is something that any sorcerer can do, in theory. We don't see it that often. I feel like we should see it more often. But in this scene, Yuta isn't using his curse technique. He's purely just using curse energy output to just destroy all those cockroaches, which is pretty impressive. Okay, so we're about to get a showdown between Kuro Urushi and Yuta. I guess the one thing to say about Kuro Urushi, he is an intelligent curse, she is an intelligent curse, and so she's able to strategize, able to use weapons like the Festering Life Sword that she's got there. This is like facing one of the disaster curses, or pretty close to that. So yeah, Kuro Urushi's goal is just to eat as many people as possible, like we saw with that guy who she just devoured. Jesus Christ, they're really going all out for this, aren't they? This is pretty nuts. Okay, that was incredible. So Yuta just destroyed 2 cursed cockroach tornadoes. I don't even know how else to describe that. To Yuta's credit, he destroys them pretty easily with the curse energy discharge. That was very impressive. Okay, so I feel like I need to explain what happened there. So beforehand, we were looking at real cockroaches, but after Yuta destroyed them, we see there's 2 Shikigami. And by slicing them, it kind of releases this, I don't want to call it acid because I honestly don't know what it is, but the main point is that this liquid, this green liquid, it blinds Yuta for a split second. And that's what gives Kuro Urushi the opening. Although this moment happens really quickly, basically what happens is the Festering Life Sword shoots out these eggs, right? So inside the sword are a bunch of cockroach eggs, and by shooting those off into Yuta's wound, they grow really quickly and they just explode out of him. So I don't know how else to say it. They've grown inside him, and if Yuta didn't have reverse curse technique, then he might have died in this moment. Instead, he's able to kill Kurorushi by kissing her. And the reason this worked is because cursed spirits are made from negative cursed energy. Whereas with reverse curse technique, you're able to output a positive energy because, as we know, reverse curse technique is when you multiply negative energy to create positive energy. And that positive energy is poisonous to all cursed spirits. Immediately after this, Uro shows up, and as we can see, she's kind of like enlarging the space around her, I guess is the best way to describe it, kind of comparable to Limitless in a way. And by doing this, she flings Yuta back into this building and immediately follows it up by punching him. Now, for this one split second, Yuta's arm kind of looks like Luffy from One Piece, and the only reason this happened is because he tried to punch her, and she's manipulating that space so that his attack doesn't land. And by manipulating the space that his arm is in, that's what causes it to get stretched out. But Yuta doesn't actually, he won't take damage from this. It's just an interesting way for her to avoid his attack. That's pretty much it. She then punches him into a museum, it looks like. And he's just trying to basically figure out what her technique does because he's not feeling any pain at the moment. Wait, for 1 second. Let me just rewind that. So in this scene where we see Yuta, in the background, this picture of that guy, I promise you, I've seen this picture. I don't know, it might be maybe Michizane Sugawara. I'm promising you, the picture in the background there, I'm going to Google this afterwards, but that picture in the background, that is of someone who is relevant to Jujutsu Kaisen. It's either Michizane Sugawara or it's a member of the Fujiwara clan, but I have definitely seen that picture before, so I'm going to be looking that up right after this video. Anyway, we should probably discuss what they're actually talking about. So Yuta's wondering why someone like Uro would actively seek a fight and try to, fight him. Because if she wants to survive the Culling game, she can easily kill one person every 19 days and survive. So he's basically wondering, why are you going out of your way to start a fight with me? And Uro basically replies by saying this is her chance at a second life. So to fully realize that second life and to, make the most of it, she needs to get as many points as possible so that she's prepared for whatever Kenjaku is going to do. The reason Yuta has a problem with this is that Uro has come from the past and is now killing people in the present. So he's basically saying, like, how can you be so desperate for a second chance at life that you are coming into the future and killing people who you don't know? Like, how could you be that desperate? This is why she gets triggered, because from her point of view, she was treated very unfairly in her first life, right? Very unfairly. So this is a chance at redemption. Whereas from Yuta's point of view, he's not really empathizing with her. And so, that is what sets her off. And that's why she strangles him and just, blasts him outside the museum. Anyway, as these two were flying through the sky, they get hit with just the full force of Granite Blast, which is Ryu's special move. And basically, all it is a blast of concentrated curse energy that comes directly from his hair. Yeah, as you can see, it caused a bit of damage to the street. I say quite a bit of damage. But Uro and Yuta were fine, mostly because of their curse energy reinforcement. From Yuta's perspective, though, he wasn't thinking about himself. He's thinking about the civilians who were in the stadium, because if a blast of that exact level was to hit the stadium, then definitely people would die. It might not be everyone because Rika is there protecting them, but it would be a lot of people. And so Yuta's main goal after getting hit was to just take out Ryu. This is why we see him running towards Ryu like this, and these acrobatics are insane, by the way. If I had to just eyeball it, that was like 10 different granite blasts all at once. And so I guess that shows you the difference between Ryu and other players, right? Because a normal player like Yuta, for example, they're able to output curse energy. But the thing about Ryu's technique is that he can release multiple blasts at the same time. And those blasts are kind of like heat-seeking missiles. They can change direction and kind of curve around and try and find the target. Doesn't mean they'll land necessarily, because as we can see, Yuta dodged quite a few of them, but Ryu's discharge of curse energy, it is stronger than most people. It has more blasts than most people. Most people can't do this many separate blasts at once. And it also is able to follow the target to an extent. So it has, 3 big advantages over other sorcerers. After avoiding all those blasts, Yuta basically tells him to stop destroying everything. Stop shooting your blasts everywhere, because if he's reckless, then he might hurt the civilians who were in the stadium. Even though Yuta has called himself weak, this is still pretty incredible. I know he's being reinforced by curse energy, so it's not completely his own physical strength, but I don't care. Yuta is very good at hand-to-hand combat. You know, he's only been training for like the last...
The terrace holds what we require to gain entry to the Void Storm. The Cynosure of Twilight.
Warned, Umbric. The terrace is forever closed to you. Now leave before...
Mortals, scrabbling after any shred of control. I need to get closer. All of you, feed on the void. I need to target something first.
How I've missed my prairie.
Entry.
Seems to be detained. The construct ahead is heightening Rama's spellwork. Destroy it!
It's still recharging. I'm out. Yes. Feed. All of you. Feed on the void. Let its darkness fill you. I need to get closer. I need a target. It's too far away. I need to target something first.
All
students must follow policy. Optional.
Mortals. Scrabbling after any shred of control.
Proceeding with intent.
I need it.
Please remain still. Compliance is not optional. Suppressive barrels necessary. Refusing. Please stand by.
I need to get closer.
Resume disciplinary measures. Policy demands compliance.
I'm out of range.
Proceeding with impairment.
It's too far away.
Feed.
Please remain still.
I need
Secure.
Solution, but effective. The Seneschal should give just
I'm out of range.
Yeah. Feed. All on the void. Let its darkness fill you.
It's too far away. I'm out of range. I need to get closer. I'm out of range.
Mortals. Scrabbling after any shred of control.
I need to get closer.
Zaranel, stand down. I have permission from Lorthamar himself.
Liar! None shall lay hands on the Cynosure! The Cynosure remain... Give it all! Your fall is written! Speak no more!
He's too far away. I need to get closer.
I am unyielding! Your fall is written!
I'm out of range. It's still recharging.
Silence!
It is too far away.
Mortals.
Your fall is written! Speak no more! Let this serve as a warning! Marked for defeat! You shall not...
Help me remove the wards around the Sinisher.
All of you, feed on the void. Let its darkness fill you.
I'm out of range. I need to target something first. I need a target. It's not ready. I need to get closer. I cannot use it.
All of you, feed on the void. Let its darkness fill you. Let its darkness fill you.
I need to get closer. It's not ready yet.
Scrabbling after any shred of control.
I'm out of range.
Scrabbling after any shred of control.
I need to get closer. It is too far away. I'm out of range. I cannot use that.
Mortals. Scrabbling after any shred of control.
I need to get closer.
Champion, I know what to do. I'll need to attune the Cynosure to the voice. What is that monstrosity? You keep it occupied while I handle this down and end this chaos.
You dare? Then down! Seal in darkness. The void hunger.
I can't do that.
Scattering shadows.
It is too far away.
Scattering shadows. The void. Hunger. Scattering shadows.
It's still recharging.
The void. Hunger. Scattering shadows. Umbrella Cascade. The void. Hunger. Scattering shadows. The void. Hunger. Scattering shadows. Umbrella Cascade. The void. Hunger. Scattering shadows.
I need to target something first.
It is done. We have our way into the Void Storm. Let us inform Lorthamar. And perhaps offer an apology for the near catastrophe.
I cannot use that. It's too far away.
Mortal. Scrabbling at the shred of control. Well done, mortal.
My goods are one of a kind. May my goods serve you well. Are you planning a purchase? Return.
I'm out of range.
Dark portals are tearing open reality, allowing shadow energy to pour into our realm. Put a stop to this, heroes.
I got what you need! Glad I could help!
The void beckons us onward. Embrace it. Leave your sanity.
It is too far away.
Yes. Feed. All of you. Feed on the void. Let its darkness
Still recharging. feed. Feed on the void. Let its darkness.
I will end you!
I'm out of range. He's too far away. I don't have a tolerance.
void. Let it...
Champions, over here. Follow me! The Shadow Guard is building up its presence near the temple.
Disrupting their efforts would benefit us all. Also, their commander here has a particular item that would be useful to me.
Figure out their motives and put a stop to their efforts.
All of you, feed on the void. Let its darkness fill you.
I need to get closer. It's still recharging. It is too far away.
We will not be
I need to
pushed
get
out!
closer. I'm out of range.
Mortals, struggle after any shred of control.
It is too far away. I need a help. I'm out of range.
All of you, feed on the void.
You have heart. target something first. Too far away. I'm out of range. I need to get closer.
Our efforts will not be interrupted.
It's still recharging. It's too far away. I need to get closer.
Thank you for removing the obstacles between me and the staff, heroes. Yes, this will do nicely. You'll find their viceroy near the entrance to the temple, feebly trying to break in. Eliminating him will give us an opportunity to get him ourselves. I'll see to opening the way once he's taken care of.
I need to get closer.
Feed on the void. Let it darkness fill you. All of you, feed on the void. Let its darkness fill you.
I cannot use that yet. I'm out of range.
The void calls to me.
After any shred of control.
He's too far away. It's not ready yet.
I sense great despair emanating from within. Nora.
Yes, the Naru. We must get inside. Valyria, the skills you have learned can open the way.
Such chaos. The way is open. Hurry, heroes.
It is rare that a Naru falls into void this way. The few cases I know of have occurred when mortals were involved. What fascinating implications.
Such musings can wait, though. This entity must die.
It's still recharging. I need to get closer.
Mortals. After any shred of control. Our agreement stands.
How did a being of the light become a creature of shadow?
The void is a force of change, of transformation. Shadows are fluid, ever shifting.
I feel the fallen Naru's power. It beckons me.